So,
Be gentle.
all right.
Ronald, did you have someone work with you on creating this?
Yes and no.
Okay. At
I
one
can
point
say
you
yes
did.
and no.
And
At
you
one
sort of-
point, some time ago.
Okay, because it does look, it has that look like it may have been worked on by a professional resume writer. So
And I want to say, you grabbed my attention. Could you go back to the top for a second, Georgetown? You grabbed my attention with your summary. Oh, results-oriented professional, solid leadership skills, relationships. Sounds like a guy I want to learn a little bit more about. So that's got good grab.
that's interesting because I have a different take on the summary. We're gonna have a fight.
Go
We're gonna
for
have a fight here.
Awesome. Let's hear it.
So when I see results oriented, I immediately stop reading
Oh,
because everyone starts with results oriented. Everyone. So you have quite a few things here that are sort of the buzzwords that everyone uses. And so I always try to write something that not everyone has written. So the words that jump out at me that are sort of overused, results oriented, and this is for everyone, results oriented, highly experienced, it's at the end of the first line, demonstrated success. And those are the big ones. And then you have adept at twice. And so I'm kind of wanting more and getting more of a sense of the results that you
good. Yeah.
create in that top summary section. Because what you have now is a great description of a VP of operations, and what any VP of operations has probably got to be good at. Maybe. I mean, maybe some of these things are specific to something that you offer. Maybe not every VP of operations is great at raising capital. And if that distinguishes you, then you definitely want to emphasize that. But I would not shy away from putting even some numbers here, or some types of companies you've worked with, or something that gives us a little more to grab onto than all of these overall general skills.
Yeah. Really good advice. One of the things that I like to see is as you look through all of your accomplishments below, sometimes you can roll those up into a collective accomplishment statement about an impact you've had in a particular area that's significant if it's related to the job you're looking for. So you can then have a bullet point. This is that I mentioned, kind of the puff resume, puff summary versus substantive, something that really says, and this is what I actually did. This is the level of accomplishment I've done in these areas. It's got to be just done in like no more than a sentence or two, but really bottom line. So it grabs my attention to want to read more about that detail. So how is this sitting for you, Ronald? What are you getting from this?
Oh, just some great insight. Curious to see and processing it. Because my questions were a little bit differently because I made a pivot or trying to make a pivot, and what people see is differently. So I'm curious.
Tell us about your pivot. What are you up to?
So I've been in nonprofit education for the bulk of my life, career life, and wanted to make it, actually I can say my life. Then I wanted to make a pivot to more of social good technology in the technology space. So I co-founded LYC Products Company. Still piddling around with it, but it's not generating, it's not growing as we like it to grow.
Yeah, so that's how you can describe yourself in the summary.
Right.
Is if you have, I can't see the whole resume at once, it's really frustrating, but if you have an executive background in nonprofit leadership, and also entrepreneurial venture with this other, whatever this technology for good or whatever it is that you did, that's part of what you can say about yourself. And that is not going to sound like everybody else.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's what we
Fantastic.
talked about
One of-
earlier about your story and your narrative and getting that up into the summary.
So the overarching thing I'm hearing here is to get as specific as possible with what your skills are. And that will, even if the company, perhaps if it's not specific to that company, but it just will help them understand you. And it's pretty easy to say, oh, okay, great. They were able to create that kind of result here in this specific thing. I can see how that's going to play over here in our company. But without that, if you just say demonstrated success and use the phrases that Brenda's mentioning, it's not going to help what you've really done lock in for people.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, the other thing I would add to this is I'm noticing even in your new company, not just, I mean, especially you're still very much a purpose-driven leader. You're looking at you're looking at, in this case, wellness, a wellness app. So
Mhm.
it's actually a strength that you've had this strong background in the nonprofit sector, which is more, a lot of people think of, oh, nonprofit is this thing and then for profit, as opposed to mission-driven organizations. Sometimes the most creative mission-driven organizations are in the for-profit sector. So you may actually be trying to downplay your background when actually it could be a real strength. And I think that's part of what Brenda's getting at, that you could feature more of your skill set there and translating it into, I mean, what's the difference really? And when you're moving to out of the nonprofit sector, you're talking about usually higher levels of efficiency, accountability, and hopefully better salaries, which is what a good non-for-profit ought to do anyway, but they don't. So yeah. Is that making sense? Is that?
Mhm.
Yeah, good, okay. So yeah, scroll down, let's see what else we got here. Co-founder.
That broke and the page break didn't work.
Yeah, I'm noticing these, so I can
Errors.
definitely tell you worked with a resume writer who knew what they were doing, because you have these summaries, and this is also, everyone listen to this. These summary sections under the job title, drove startup charter school, providing with this annual operating budget, created all this stuff, right? So it's still accomplishment oriented. The one above it,
So but just FYI, that one's me.
Well, that's
that
good.
one is me.
Right.
Most of the stuff at the old
You're
stuff.
modeling, you were modeling off of, so that's great. Developed and implemented a strategic plan. See, you don't have to have those opening paragraphs be all about responsible for and all about your job duties. You can actually describe your overarching kind of accomplishment and contribution to the organization in that opening paragraph. And that makes people want to keep reading.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's sort of blah, blah, blah. Now, you do need, in a lot of cases, especially if you're a paralegal, to show that you have the skills. They care about your skills. But the more you can connect the skill to an accomplishment, the better. And then your most recent position, your company, Ron, I don't think you do that. It's a little more general. We have manage operations and projects. You didn't really say that you started the company.
Mm-hmm. It says founding team member, but it doesn't stand out. Yeah.
Well, that's definitely something to highlight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you sound like an employee here.
Yeah, I did it on purpose because I didn't want people to run away.
Oh, you're afraid of being too much, huh?
Yes.
Well, I suggest you just be too much and see who wants to play at your level.
It's only
Yeah, I'd like to hire somebody who's too much, whose cup can overflow.
But it's a question, how do you present this and talk about it in your cover letter and your interviews? I mean, I don't know that you want to be hired by anyone who's like, oh, he started his own company, so we don't like that, that might not be the right person to hire you.
But this comes up a lot where people have their own businesses, companies, and stuff, and for whatever reason, whether it's because they want more security or whether it's because they're just like, you know what, I want to be on a team. I'm sick of working alone. I'm sick, you know,
Mhm.
but just for a company to understand that they're getting someone who's really driven and that they actually want to come in because they want to be able to glean things from the people around them. They just like that environment. That comes up. I've seen that come up a lot.
I'm not sure if I understand what you mean. How do you relate that in that description?
You know, I don't know how to relate that in the description. I
Okay.
just know that one of the fears is that people have is like, oh, a company's not going to want to
Mhm.
hire me because I've had my own business. And that's, I don't know that that's the case.
Well, let me speak to that a
And some
second.
people like an entrepreneurial spirit.
Yep.
My sense about you, what I'm getting from this, Ron, is that you're going to get your next job through networking. It's not going to be by putting your resume into a pile of resumes. It's going to come through personal networking where it's a different game. And really your resume is going to be almost more of a leave behind, or can you tell me, something you're leaving for somebody as opposed to getting an HR person to put you in the right pile. It's not to say you don't also apply for jobs, but you're at a point in your career where you're looking for more senior level positions. You've done a lot of major stuff, and it's going to come through personal networking. So, and this is something we emphasize at Wright a lot, is the number one game for finding a job, but also developing your career ongoing, is through those personal networks where you're finding people who are like-minded. You're looking at organizations that you want to work for because you've done the research on it and said, okay, here are the 5 or 10 companies that I think have the kind of culture and the kind of product line and the kind of stuff that I'm about, that I want to work at. And I'm going to interview, I'm going to find out and research those places. And then I'm going to start talking to people about how to get in and meet some people there. And I'm going to find out how I might fit and what I can do. So it's going to be more that kind of game for you as opposed to the resume game. Does that make sense?
Yes, I've
Yeah.
been told that.
How are you doing on that so far for yourself?
Terrible.
Well, okay. Well, I appreciate your honesty. So you
That's
came
the
to the right
terrible part.
place. That's what we do. We coach people in doing that and getting good at that. I had a person who was a lawyer who hated networking. She just hated it. The last thing she wanted to do, and she kind of begrudgingly would do it a little bit and a little bit more. And then after a couple months, she was having so much fun, she started getting offers and she turned them down because she didn't want to stop networking. Honest to God. So you could catch on to this. And as an entrepreneur, it's that kind of game, right? It's how do you build relationships, and a lot of your resume is about building relationships. So I welcome you to play in that game more.